Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for tonight's broadcast, Insanely 13, and FEC Summer IndyCar is back. The season is a little bit longer than what it was last season. There are going to be a few new circuits on the schedule, including this here. The series is going to be starting Season 2 out at Hakone, and more interestingly than that, it's going to be raining. Rain is a rarity in FEC events, so having rain here is going to be a very unique and special opportunity. So, as we prepare for our race tonight, what are some things to keep in mind? Well, there are plenty of things we learned from the last season of FEC IndyCar. For one, higher tire wear, lower tire wear doesn't really matter. There is one very important thing in this series. That is fuel load. The Indy cars in this game are incredibly sensitive to the amount of fuel that they have in the car. What does that mean? That means that the less fuel you have, the faster you're going to go. You're going to find a ridiculous amount of pace at the very end of your tire life because, yes, you may be losing grip from bad tires, but the low fuel load will give you some ridiculous speed. That means under most circumstances, running on the soft tire compound on a small fuel load is going to be the ideal way to go. There will probably be a handful of scenarios where that's not the case, but that is generally anticipated to be the way to tackle most of the races throughout the season. What else do we have to consider? Well, the field is a lot bigger. We had 26 drivers attempt to qualify for tonight's event. However, a Forza lobby can only hold 24 people. The series hosts were nice enough to let me, as a broadcaster, take one of those slots, so only 23 drivers would be allowed to start tonight's event, so we ended up having some bumping tonight. So we have lost several drivers for tonight's event. So we will be running a full lobby with a handful of other drivers on standby in case of a last-minute disconnect or leave before the race starts. Other thing to remember, qualifying was done in the rain, and qualifying was done in two parts. The first part was to determine the middle part of the grid and to determine who was going to get bumped. Then there was a second qualifying session lasted about 12 and a half minutes. Then there was a second qualifying session that lasted just 2 laps. That was very simple. It was the top 12 drivers. They were all told to go back out and set their new fastest laps. That reset the top 12. However, unsurprisingly, it was Scored Buffalo who ended up being the fastest in both of them. He set a 1:01 in the first qualifying session and a 1:02 in the second qualifying session. No one else is around him. Another thing to keep in mind is that the entire top 15 were all about 1 second within about 1 second of each other after the first round of qualifying. The draft also is very powerful in this game. I would not be surprised if we see some absolutely massive draft trains, even if we get some relatively long green flag runs today. Other things to keep in consideration, it is a new season. While maybe Racing was your champion last year, his competition was rather paltry. Scored Buffalo and Amish Gaming did. Although they won races throughout the season last year, they did not show up to anywhere near enough races to give maybe Racing any competition. Donald Prime 77 did show up to all the races, but did not have good strategy or the pace necessary to match maybe Racing. So despite maybe missing a race in the middle part of the season, he still locked up the championship before the season finale last year. However, now the season is just a little bit longer. There are technically drop rounds. I'm not a fan of that, but there are drop rounds that have been brought into the series just to placate the masses. And there is more high-level competition. Now, we don't know how many of them are going to stick around. In DL Shadow, he has shown a lot of competency in many different kinds of racing in this game. We don't know if he's going to be able to stick around. A lot of drivers from the Excite group have shown up. Excite was one of the first groups in Forza Motorsport 8 to go ahead and launch an IndyCar series back when they came to the game last year. So, again, there are a lot of other drivers who have some good competitiveness here. Maybe Racing didn't go out here and dominate with the pole. That went to Scored Buffalo. So, if Scored Buffalo shows up to the majority of the races this season, he might be able to do something for the championship as well. So, again, this championship may be a little bit more up in the air than what we saw happen last year. Right now, we're still waiting for drivers' briefings to get finished, and then they will reload tonight's race lobby. One thing to remember is that this race is going to have rain, but it's not going to be raining all the way through. There's expected to be a moderate amount of rain early on, then about 60% chance of light rain in the middle section of the race, followed by a overcast wet, so basically a damp but otherwise dry conditions in the end part of this race. So the track is going to continue to get faster and faster as it goes on tonight. So our drivers are now moseying on over into this lobby real quickly. We're going to wait just a little bit for them all to get into their proper cars before we try to take a look at everyone's paint schemes for tonight's race here. And again, I do want to apologize. I'm nursing a lip that I bit really badly on, and while it is well on the way to healing, is healing right on top of a exposed nerve. So talking for prolonged periods of time gives me a moderate amount of pain. So if my lisp seems worse than normal, and my ability to string together proper words and sentences seems a little worse than normal, just be aware of that issue. I do apologize. I'm hoping that by this upcoming weekend, the issue with my mouth should be mostly resolved. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break as the field is still moseying on over. And when we come back, hopefully everyone will be readied up and begin to get ordered on the circuit here. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a holding pattern as we are waiting on the last handful of drivers to get back into this new lobby. The game is not giving us the ability to go ahead and look at other drivers' paint schemes, it seems. Sad, but true. We do apologize for this relatively late start to the event. The massive lobby necessitated an extra round of qualifying, which is why we are running a little bit farther behind than usual. So this broadcast is going to go a little bit later than normal, but regardless, we will be here to the end of tonight's race. So I do hope that you will stick with us tonight. Barring any internet failures or hardware issues, we will be here to the end of this race. And it's going to be an interesting race. Like I said earlier, FEC very, very rarely runs anything in rainy conditions. But as you look at the event info here, or the event setup here, you can see we have moderate rain at the start. There's a 60% chance of light rain. If we do not get light rain, well, the probability percentages are a little bit up in the air. We don't really know what can happen if you don't have those guaranteed probabilities one way or another. We don't know what the alternatives might be, but we do know that the end of this race will be in overcast, wet conditions tonight. So PTG Neb has now joined us as well here. So we're still expecting, I believe, one more driver to join the lobby here before we get underway. Maybe two, but I think it's just one that we are still waiting on. So we do also have the official word that the three drivers who attempted to qualify but failed to make the race ended up being Slasher, Packerman71, and Pointy Scroll. Those three drivers were unable to set a time fast enough that would get them entered into tonight's race. Again, this is very interesting because typically you do not see bumping or too large of a field in races that aren't the Indy 500 in this game. But in today's event, that has been the case. We had more drivers entered than what the lobby could hold. A very interesting and unique scenario here, as we are still waiting for us to get underway for tonight's event. Yeah, we believe we're looking at a 22 car grid for today's event, so I think one more person still needs to show up here. And again, race is going to start under rainy conditions. Interesting thing to consider, the wet weather tires can last longer than the length of a full fuel tank. The medium tires also can last longer than the length of a full fuel tank, but the soft tires do not go the length of a full fuel tank. Again, though, the big thing is that you gain your most speed in the Indy cars by running on a low fuel load. Do not be surprised to see a handful of people who are midfield who think they should be farther up the grid putting a small fuel load in early on, betting on pitting early, bringing a bunch of laps in clean air, and using that to cycle ahead of other drivers on the track here. Another thing to be aware of as well is that with the wet tires lasting longer than a fuel load, it could also be a legitimate strategy to stay out on a fuel tank as long as possible and hope that when you make your pit stop, you catch the transition from one weather condition to the other. If this race has a flip in the weather exactly at the 33% distance mark, that would be about 50 to 16 laps for the first swap and about 30 to 31 laps, 31 to 32 laps for the second swap. So, again, it would be interesting to see how far drivers actually believe they can press a fuel tank, especially with how powerful the draft is in this game. And Hakone has not only a relatively long front straightaway, but it has an enormous back straightaway. We are expecting the field to be in one gigantic draft train going down said back straightaway, and there is a lot of opportunities to do some lifting and coasting and save a good amount of fuel while doing that. So again, maybe if you're going for track position, maybe if you're trying to cut out an extra pit stop or something, maybe you try and overfuel and go as long as you can, save that pit stop of yours for as late in the run as possible. So it looks like VER Polax has joined us. He is going to be starting second in tonight's event. But again, your pole setter is going to be Scored Buffalo. Interesting thing to consider, laps. We're only looking at about a minute and some change for a lap around here. This race is only going to be 47 laps. So if we go green flag to flag, this race is going to be over in about 50 minutes. Again, FEC Indycar isn't really known for having ridiculously long races, and it does look like we are loading onto the circuit, so we're going to see the field get ordered up momentarily here. Again, Scored Buffalo we know is on the pole position. VER Polax will be in second. I believe it is Maybe Racing who is going to be third. One thing I consider is that Maybe Racing's closest competition, the championship last season, Dino Prime, did not. He said he felt very confident during practice in the rain, but in the dry, he did not have any speed whatsoever. Did not crack the top 12 shootout, so he is going to be starting midfield. He thinks he can make his way forward in the event. But again, with the track drying out as the event goes on, it may be a case that he climbs up the grid early on, but then gradually falls back down through the field late in the running. So we do want to keep an eye on that. NDL Shadow will be starting 4th. The Big Mav will be starting 5th. Amish Gaming will be starting 6th. GGA Spinal will be starting 7th. 8th will be VER Razor. 9th position for your starting grid will be GRPK Golden. Golden has been a feature in many different series over the last few years. They used to run a team back in Forza Motorsport 6. They've come back in this game, and they and their teammate 2Fuzzball has shown on quite a bit of potential. PTG Neb is going to be starting the event in 10th. PTG Speed will be starting our race in 11th. In 12th position will be Prius Killer 8110. Prius was the driver who ended up winning the Indy 250 race in last season's event after the two dominant drivers, Maybe Racing and Dino Prime, both completely botched their fuel strategies. 13th will be Dino Prime 77, who was second in the championship last season. 14th will be Deed Spearman. 15th will be 2 Fuzzball, who is GRPK Golden's teammate. 16th will be Thomas 086R, 17th will be Kuro Shine, 18th will be Jack Broseph, 19th will be XMS Dragon 1. No, the 17th is Jack Broseph, 18th is NFL Racer 4812, 19th is Kuro Shine, 20th is XMS Dragon 1, 21st is Series Host Pindaz, and 22nd will be Knees Morphed. And that will be your starting order for today's race. There will be a pace lap, so you will have 46 minutes of actual proper racing. Roughly a minute a lap. If we go green flag to flag, you do have to factor in pit stops and the fact that the drivers will be going slower in the rain for the first 2/3 of this race. I anticipate that this race, if we go green flag to flag, will be done in about 50 to 52 minutes. Yellow flags, though, can completely randomize how that goes. And if this race does go green flag to flag, we will be here with completely uninterrupted, ad-free coverage for tonight's event. If we do have yellow flags, though, I will knock out ad breaks there anyway. It's going to be a slow roll off the grid. No one really wants to light up the tires, kick the car around, and immediately damage it off the start. But it is number 31. It scored Buffalo, gaining the first points of the season by starting the race in pole position here. Followed by VER Polax, then Maybe Racing, your defending champion. Then Indiel Shadow in the Excite car, followed by the Big Mav in another Excite car. Then Amish Gaming, GGA Spino. Spino is anticipated on running only a partial schedule this season. After that is VER Razor, GRPK Golden, PTG Neb, and PTG Speed. After that will be Prius Killer in the same scheme he ran last year. Then Dino Prime in the same scheme he ran last year. After that is Deed Speeman, followed by 2 Fuzzball and Thomas 086R. After Thomas is Jack Broseph, and following Jack Broseph will be NFL Racer 4812. You can see him there. Then it will be Kuro Shine, XMS Dragon, Pindaz, and Knees Morphed, and that is your real quick rundown on the looks of the 22 cars who will be starting today's event. Real quick, let's look at the fuel load for our drivers. A full fuel tank for Scored Buffalo at the start of this race. For Polax, he is running 85% to start the race. Maybe Racing, who's going to be starting third, he has a full fuel tank as well. Indiel Shadow, who is starting fourth, he has 80% in his fuel tank. Fifth place will be the Big Mav, and Mav has 80% in his fuel tank. So the FEC veterans going for a full fuel load early on, this will make them a little bit slower. Again, these cars are incredibly sensitive to the weight of the fuel load. The less fuel you have in the car, you will go massively faster. The gap from a full fuel tank to a near empty fuel tank can be close to 1 3/4 of a second, even around a relatively quick circuit like here. As the field now doubles up, it'll be 46 laps of running, 11 rows, 2 cars each, a full grid for tonight's race at Hakone. Ladies and gentlemen, the green flag is in the air, and FEC Summer IndyCar Series Season 2 is underway, and we already have someone who's gone into the pits farther back there, but we are off, and it's going to be Scored Buffalo who leaps ahead of Polax. Polax going to hold the outside line, going to try and dive deep, and now hold it around the outside. It's the Excite car against Scored Buffalo, but Scored has the ideal lane, despite the fact that he's switching, he will hold the position, and now Polax falls behind Maybe Racing. There are 2 cars sliding wide farther back, but now they come down to this high-speed S, one of the most dangerous sections of the circuit under a full field, but it looks like most of the field is going to get through without too much issue. It looks like everyone's going to get through without any incident, going down onto the long back straightaway. And now we look at the leaders as they come down to the braking zone. Buffalo defends the outside. Polax, Shadow, side by side for second and third. Maybe Racing losing their position now to the Big Mav, it seems. There are cars sliding farther back in the grid, but it looks like everyone is still pointing roughly in the same direction right now. Absolutely monster grid, and it's just so hard to find any kind of track position. There's somebody spinning farther back there. Was that Knees Morphed or was that Kuro Shine? It was Kuro Shine. Kuro Shine has gone for a spin completely on their own in the 1-hour car. But we should stay green. There shouldn't be any yellow for that. It is Scored Buffalo, NDL Shadow, VER Polax, the Big Mav, and VER Razor in the top 5. PTG Neb has already moved his way up into 6. Maybe Racing is plummeted down the grid out of the top 5 already. Your Defending Series champion showing some weakness, and that's Prius who gets into him, and in the process it gets him wide. Here comes Golden. Golden gets to the inside. Golden's by Prius, and now PTG Speed gets alongside Prius. He'll go side by side. These two have known each other for years, but they're not going to give each other any room, and Prius is around, and he's hard into the wall, and the S's. And that should total the car, I'd imagine. Yes, massive damage. The engine is still functioning, though. He should still be able to get around and get going. But a huge hit for Prius Killer. Now the question is going to be, is that going to warrant a yellow flag or not? He is able to get going again, and with a still functioning engine, he should be able to make it back to pit road without too much of an issue. Shadow runs right behind Scored Buffalo at the head of the field. VER Polax runs about 0.8 of a second out from our top 2 right now. In these moderate rainy conditions, we know that there shouldn't be too much of an issue with the tires falling off. The question is just going to be handling. How good can the drivers handle their cars? Coming out of the final corner, Scored Buffalo and VER Polax just briefly lick the outside wall there, but no serious issue. They keep it going straight, still just about nose to tail between the top 2 as they go down to turn number 1. Turn number 1 is basically a long, stretched out, not quite hairpin corner. And it does look like we are going to stay green, so they are not throwing the yellow flag for Prius Killer's instant, it would appear. Shadow looks to the outside, now back to the inside, still holding the draft on Scored Buffalo as they go down the back straightaway. Buffalo throws the block, Shadow gets off circuit, now gets back on circuit, still holds in line behind Scored Buffalo, but doesn't seem to be going for any big crazy dive bomb right now. I think that these two just want to go ahead, hook up nose to tail like this, and try to draft away from the rest of the field right now. Maybe Racing has stemmed the bleeding. He has stabilized into 7th position, but this is much, much lower than where we normally would see him. A lot of contact further up there. That is the Big Mav, and GGA Spino having a little bit of disagreement over track position right there. Now Spino trying to work the outside line, now giving the inside in the final corner. The Big Mav, though, could have a run to try and get the crossover on corner exit. He does. The Big Mav goes back into the 5th position, just ahead of GGA Spino. Field now really starting to spread out at this stage of the event. Drivers who are moving up the grid. Dietzman is already starting to climb up in this big glut of cars here in the middle to rear of the field right now. Still not a lot of clear track available for these drivers, it seems. Bit of a twitch, bit of a slide back there. That was NFL Racer who was sliding around with about 10-degree skew in his driving angle out of the rear of the car coming out of turn number 1. Through the S's now, down the straightaway, Dietzman pulls back alongside URPK Golden, and I think he'll have just enough speed. He will clear Golden by the braking zone, but now Golden looks back to the inside. That's NFL Racer, who wants to try and make it 3 wide. Deed leaves it wide enough open for NFL to get alongside. A little bit of side pod to side pod contact, and NFL Racer clears them all. And while all this is going on, it lets Dino, who is in 10th position, try to scoot away just a bit, as this glut of about 6 cars just cannot seem to figure out who is going to be where in this mess. Now it's Golden who is back ahead of NFL Racer. NFL trying to hold it around the outside. That will give him the inside in the final corner. Golden might be able to cross him over on corner exit. That will be the big question. Bit of a run, bit of a slide, but yo, someone hit the wall back there. I think that may have been PTG Speed or Jack Broseph who hit the wall farther back there. But for now, NFL Racer stays ahead of Golden, and that is PTG Speed who now dives to the inside of Golden. Cannot make it hold side by side there through turn number 1. Speed has to sell for 13th for the moment. Meanwhile, back at the head of the field, NDL Shadow has lost touch with Scored Buffalo and has now fallen into the clutches of Polax. Polax has actually gotten by Shadow. Big thing to remember, Shadow and Polax are running a lighter fuel load right now than Scored Buffalo. So ideally, they should be faster, but in these wet weather conditions, you have to wonder, does the lighter fuel load making their cars a lot more difficult to handle? Shadow really seems to be struggling. He's fast, but he is really struggling keeping that car going in a straight line. He is drifting so much speed away in the corners, and that is letting Scored Buffalo just walk off with this. And again, for Scored Buffalo, the season is longer, but there is a drop round, so that does put a possible run at the championship on the table for Scored Buffalo. He had no shot at the championship last season because he just missed too many races, but for Scored Buffalo, starting from the pole, he has led every single lap thus far. He has broken away from all his competition. This could be a good shot for Buffalo to try and get a good run for the title, especially with the defending series champion, maybe Racing, stuck in the upper midfield here, fighting with the likes of GGA Spino and PTG Neb. Maybe needs to be higher up the grid immediately if he wants to start playing a serious defense on his title hopes. Maybe racing right here behind Spino now is going to look to what will be the outside as they come into the braking zone. He gets the nose ahead, heavy under the braking. That number 1 machine holds it around the outside. A little bit of contact, they both get all sorts of sideways, and that's going to bring PTG Neb up into the mix. We're on board Neb as he is right behind those two. They're still side by side as they head downhill. And now into the last 3 corners, and it looks like maybe goes deep enough to clear Spino for the moment. Spino gets right back behind Maybe's rear wing. As a look out of the final corner, look at how much some of these drivers are just skewing their entire rear end, going over those curbs. Again, this is a fixed tune series, and there is almost no rear downforce in these cars for this series. As you see your leaders going by, that is the lap car Prius who's in the middle of that glut. And you can see how much the top 3 have pulled away from the rest of the field. That is VER Razor in 4th, the Big Mav in 5th, 6th is Maybe, then Spino, Neb, Amish, and there's Dino. Then a gap back to this massive glut of cars that are finally starting to sort themselves out. And then you get back to looking at the rear of the grid there. So now the lap traffic of Prius Killer is really holding up Polax and Indy Shadow, it would appear. Now, while this series does follow blue flag rules, you are still allowed to hold a normal racing line if you want. You're just not allowed to block or defend. But on a circuit like this, it may just be incredibly difficult to try and make something like that work. And PTG Neb is limping. There is something wrong with Neb. Did he hit the wall? Yes, Neb hit the wall. We saw Neb go wide there on that track camera. And it looks like Neb hit the wall and totaled his car. And that's going to knock him out of the top 10 position right now. So that moves PTG Speed up into 10th. And Dino Prime moves into 9th position. Maybe Racing just barely staying ahead of GGA Spino for the moment, as they go through the S's once again. But we have stayed green thus far in the race. A lot of single car spins and incidents, but nothing warranting a yellow flag as the field has gotten very spread out right now. Again, the big thing to consider, Polax and Shadow have a lighter fuel load than Scored Buffalo. We do not know when the weather is going to change, but depending on when it does change, that will have an impact as to how the strategy plays out. Buffalo, by virtue of having more fuel in the tank, is a lot in a position where he can be much, much more flexible on his strategy going forward in this race. Polax and Shadow, while it's not like they have no fuel, they are a lot more limited. They have to be a lot more responsive to changes. They can't necessarily let changing conditions come to them. Look at this right now, 51% in Polax's car in the fuel tank. For Scored Buffalo, on the other hand, he has 67%, and the tires are only at the 17% wear mark right now. They're not even wearing 2% of their tires per lap. If, in a hypothetical scenario, we stayed green flag to flag, in the rain flag to flag, you could stay out on a set of wet tires exactly halfway, pit, throw on another set of wet tires, and go to the end with no issue. But again, we know that the track is going to dry out, but we don't know if it's going to dry out all at once or if it's going to gradually dry out. We do not know what that 60% prediction for the weather in the middle of this race is going to be. It said 60% chance for light rain, but we do not know what that other 40% chance will entail. Will it just be more moderate rain? Will it be an immediate changeover to overcast wet? Will it be some other condition that no one here is really prepared for? Again, no one here really knew it was going to be wet weather racing tonight. Boy, look at those slides there by Polax and Shadow back there. No one else has been getting their cars nearly as sideways as they have. But as I was saying, no one really knew it was going to be wet. No one was preparing or practicing for wet weather conditions until about an hour and a half before qualifying. Everyone had been practicing in dry conditions, and even when the track dries out, it will be overcast dry, so the track still is not going to have the maximum amount of grip on it. Maybe Racing has cleared GGA Spino right now, but VER Razor has been caught and passed by the Big Mav. But Razor, says that he has not touched this game in any level of seriousness for about 4 months, says that he can't really be too upset. He qualified incredibly well. He can't be too upset with his performance. As long as he doesn't wreck the car or have an incident, I think he should be very happy with his performance, especially considering that since Forza Horizon 6 came out, he has been spending a lot more time in that game than he has in anything that's a more proper, serious racer. So right now, Kuroshine runs 21st position, and they are the next driver likely to go a lap down. But as the field has gotten relatively spread out in the upper half of the grid, we look down here to the middle to rear parts of the grid. There's still fighting going on here. Golden has cleared Deedspeed, and Deedspeed is fighting with Jack Brussel here. These are for the 13th and 14th positions on track right now. Down the back straightaway, Jack has the draft on Deed. What does he try and do to Deed? Does not look like he's going to be close enough to actually make any big lunges or big moves here. And Deed is just close enough to Golden. Now, if Golden has another slide or another hiccup, Deed can be right there on top of him all over again. Looks like Kuroshine is pitting again. This will be their second time now. Is this for damage? No damage, or at least not by the looks of it, but I guess they were paying to get out of the leader's way. Polax has kind of stemmed the bleeding. He stabilized at about 2 seconds out from Scored Buffalo, but still, that is not going to be enough for him to do anything to Scored. Again, the big question is going to be, we know these cars get faster the lighter the fuel load is, but does Polax and Shadow have the ability, have the skill to actually do anything against Scored Buffalo? Oh, that was a big hiccup over the curbs there. Razor is now plummeting down the grid. He's just lost 2 positions. Oh, and there's a little bit of engine damage, so it looks like VER Razor has missed a shift somewhere. And here at Hakone, where the power is very important, missing a shift and damaging your engine, even 2%, that is a loss of about 140 horse... Oh, not 140. It's a loss of about 14 to 15 horsepower here. That might not sound like a lot, but that really quickly adds up on a big straight line focused circuit like that. So now he's already been passed by Amish Gaming. Now he's being run down slowly but surely by Dino Prime 77. And then a little bit behind him is PTG Speed. Reminder, Razor and Speed are teammates in this series. Spino has now been caught by, or is about to be caught by, Amish Gaming here. So if Amish can get in the draft of GTA Spino, we'll see him move up another position. Amish won races on both ovals and road courses last year. We know that he is very competent, very capable at running these events. And that is Razor and Dino going at it. Dino tried to make it side-by-side in the braking zone, but he was not willing to push the issue, and he let Razor hold the spot for a little bit longer. So maybe Racing is now stabilized in 5th position, which isn't bad, but he is still behind the likes of Shadow, Polax, and Buffalo, who all 3 of them, if they show up over the full course of the season, could be very serious championship contenders that maybe we'll have to contend with. Again, especially for Scored Buffalo, if Scored actually attempts to run the majority of the races this season. We saw from last season that you can, if you're going to just go out and be putting it on the podium, race in, race out, you can afford to miss a race and still lock up the championship a week early. So maybe needs to pick up a few more positions to start really putting on a title defense. Looks like Razor is actually pulled away from Dino a little bit, so whatever caused Dino to back out, he backed out maybe a little bit too much. He's only at 45% in his fuel tank right now, and Scored Buffalo, mind you, who started with a full fuel tank, he is at 45% as well. So Dino, apparently another one of the drivers who ran on a full fuel load early on, hoping to be a little bit more prepared whenever the weather makes its change. Another big slide there that you can see from Polax Shadow, a little bit more stable that time. As we look at Spino and Amish once again, and if these two fight long enough, they were going to bring Razor and, by extension, Dino Prime right back into the fray as well. That was a big slide by Spino, and that's going to give Amish some really good draft going down the main straight. Now, I don't think he's going to be close enough to go for a dive bomb in turn 1, but now he's back in the draft, and overtaking moves are very much back on the table for these two. Oh, that was a twitch by Spino. A big sideways moment in the S's. And Amish has a perfect run. Spino has to slide to control the car. Ducks to the inside. Amish is going to hold on the outside. And Amish can't complete the overtake yet. He'll have to do it under braking here. But Spino has the ideal inside line choice. He brakes, goes deep, and he's going to get back ahead. But he slides wide, gets over the curb, slides right back in front of Amish. Amish could not complete the overtake. Again, the draft is powerful, but making an overtake actually stick has been just about impossible for a lot of these drivers in the midfield. That is Kuroshine into pit road again right now. And now, VER Razor and Dino Prime are most definitely close enough. This is now a 4-man draft train that we're going to be looking at going down the straightaways. The only downside is, yeah, you might be able to save fuel running this draft train, but you are not doing anything to score Buffalo right now. Buffalo is in his zip code of his own. The only drivers kind of in his zone are Polax and Shadow, but even then, Shadow has fallen off of Buffalo at the rate of about a quarter of a second a lap. And Polask is still stuck at about 2 seconds behind Buffalo. So if you're going to beat Buffalo, just saving fuel and trying to beat him on strategy is not going to work. Just due to the limitations of the fuel tank, limitations of the changing of the weather, you will have to pit at least once in this race. Another gigantic slide by Spino right in front of Amish. And that's another big slide by Spino as they now come down the hill. Amish has got to be getting absolutely infuriated with how this is going right now. He is running perfectly fine lines, and Spino is basically all but out of control on the circuit here. And I keep seeing Amish backing out of these corners so as not to hit Spino, but in the process, he's just killing his own time, and it's bringing Razor and Dino into the fray. As you ride on board with Amish for this lap, as he continues to struggle to get by GGA Spino. Spino is fast, but Spino is so inconsistent on corner to corner, completely hanging the rear of the car out and drifting off so much speed, looking like he's going to wreck the car almost any moment here. And jumping over the inside curbs like that is not going to help, so here comes Amish. He's got to run. He's going to go to the inside this time. He gets squeezed below the white line, but it doesn't matter. Amish is pulled alongside. He's not going to be able to complete the overtake until he gets into the braking zone. But Amish broke early, and Spino went in deep, and Spino was back ahead of Amish. So Amish is playing the nice, respectful game, and GGA Spino is using him up for all he's worth. If this keeps up, if we are going to have a yellow, it's going to be because of this group right here. I can very easily see Spino going way too aggressively into a corner, and even if he doesn't get hit himself, I can see Amish backing out and getting run over from behind by either VER Razor or Dino Prime. Mind you, Razor here, who is right behind Amish, he's got a damaged engine, and he has ran Amish back down. That really goes to show how badly GGA Spino is holding this group up. Dino is just on the tail end of this fight, and if they keep it up like this for another 5-6 more laps, they're going to bring PTG Speed up into this fight as well. But Amish seems to be relatively relaxed. He does not seem to be really trying to push to get by Spino. I don't think he's realized that he has lost so much time. He is losing, on average, about a second a lap to score Buffalo, your race leader right now. And Amish Gaming is one of the few drivers in the series who we know has the pace to run down and beat scored Buffalo on merit. This time, Amish is going around the outside. He's holding it around the outside this time by. Another big sideways moment by Spino, but this has left Amish open to attack from Razor. Razor is now going to be side by side with Amish, and Razor clears Amish. And again, Razor has a damaged engine, but Amish could not make something work there. There's no damage to Amish's car. It's just that Razor has got a little bit more umption and a little bit more gumption, and Razor seems to be putting a little bit more aggression on the circuit. So Razor likely will not settle for just GGA Spino holding him up forever. Razor will probably try and go for some big moves if he thinks he can make it work against Spino. Razor and Spino taking different exits out of turn number 1, now down into this high-speed S before the back straightaway. And these cars, with all the downforce they have, it is flat out. The idea is that you want to have the most effective and efficient line through there. Not a great run there for Razor. Went wide, drift off a bunch of speed, but he still has the draft on Spino. Amish has pulled way back. He does not want a part of this right now. But Razor, with that damaged engine, cannot get alongside, cannot go deep under brake and try and make a move on Spino. And now Amish is right there again as well. And that is lap traffic just ahead of them. That is, I believe, XMS Dragon, who this group is catching. Razor looking to the outside, but there's not quite enough room or speed. The Big Mav is pitting out of 5th position now, so our leaders are starting to make green flag pit stops. Razor still runs right behind Spino. They're all going to hold an inside line to try and get by XMS Dragon here. And Dragon pulls off the line to let the field pass. It makes things significantly easier, I imagine. Big slide off circuit farther back there by Dino and Amish. In fact, it looks like Dino has just gotten by Amish there. So Amish is now hemorrhaging time significantly. No signs of damage, but I wonder if now the race has just gotten to him, and now Dino is fighting with PTG Speed. These are another two drivers who know each other for a long time, and Indiel Shadow is now pitting out of 3rd. So those drivers who had a really low fuel tank to start this race off with, they are pitting. Now, granted, we're going to see the likes of Scored Buffalo and maybe Racing still have to pit in the next few laps anyway. But GGA Spino now pits, and that's going to open things up for Razor. So Razor now gets to run some laps in cleaner air now. So things are really shifting at this point. We look at Scored Buffalo. How much fuel does he have left? As he has now put 2 fuzzball lap down. He has 20% left in the fuel tank right now. Look at Polax, who is back here in 2nd. He has only 2.8%. So Polax is going to have to pit out of 2nd spot. And maybe Racing, despite the fact that he hasn't really done anything special when it comes to pace compared to the drivers ahead of him. This strategy is on track to put him up into 2nd. But the big thing is that unless the track starts drying out now, when they pit, these drivers will have to put on another set of wet weather tires, and they will have to pit a 2nd time anyway. Now, with the way this race is going, I'm not sure we're going to see the track drying out right away by any means. But yeah, Polax now officially pitting out a 2nd spot, so this will move maybe Racing up into 2nd now on circuit. VER Razor is going to inherit 3rd with a damaged engine as well. Or maybe not. Now we're not seeing damaged engine on Razor's car. We definitely saw it earlier, but that does not seem to be the case now. Then behind him is PTG Speed. 16.5%. Another thing to consider, though, those tires are starting to get a little bit worn here. The handling of the car is going to shift a bit. Now, none of these drivers are going to end up in a position where the tires completely fall off a cliff, I imagine. But there's definitely going to be a bit of a handling difference for the car, because not only is the car getting a lot lighter in the rear, because the fuel load's burning up, but also, yes, the tires are not going to be gripping as well. In the wet weather conditions, you need all the grip you can get. Amish Gaming's still fighting here with Dino Prime. This is right now for 5th and 6th, and they can see PTG Speed just ahead, and a little bit behind them is NFL Racer 4812. So these are all drivers who went nice and long on their fuel stop, on their initial fuel loads. This is Polax, who is the highest of all the drivers who have already made a pit stop. He is closing in behind GRPK Golden right now. But here's the other thing. The likes of Polax and Shadow now have to deal with fighting, not lap traffic, but drivers who are on an alternate strategy, as Amish Gaming is now pitted out of the top 5 positions. XMS Dragon is also pitted. That will put him 2 laps down. Kuro Shine pitted about 8 laps ago and has just stayed in the pit lane. He has not made an attempt to get out onto the track. We're not really sure what's going on there. Looked like Shadow hit the wall in the final corner, but I don't see any damage to the car, so he is continuing. How much fuel did he put in? I'm sorry, what? Yeah, 41%. Wow, he is anticipating this race is going to dry up very quickly. But at the head of the field is still Scored Buffalo, as he continues to fly by and put drivers a lap down. Deed Speedman, who is in the pits, will be the next driver to go a lap down here. Amish Gaming is still a few seconds up the road from Scored Buffalo right now. PTG Speed has been caught by Dino Prime here, or is about to be caught by Dino Prime, I should say. But all these drivers are now considering when are they going to be making their stops. You look at that lap counter, 25 out of 47. We are past the halfway point in this race. NFL Racer now pits out of 6th position. But these drivers with the full loaded fuel tanks are betting on the track turning dry sooner rather than later. So that way they can make this race on a single pit stop and just throw on the softs and fly to the end. Well, one way or another, one thing's for certain, Scored Buffalo, barring any scenario where he runs into some other driver or he gets hit by somebody else or has a disconnect, he is going to walk off with this race win, won the pole by a respectable margin, but the more important thing is that he has been consistent, has made almost no mistakes on track thus far, and it does look like the track is starting to dry out just a little bit. Now, is it going to be enough for these drivers to jump on to the soft tires and to make their stop? 2 fuzzballs now made a stop. There's only 5.7% left in the tank for Scored Buffalo. The track's not completely dry yet, though. I think it may be showing signs of starting to dry out, but it is not dried out yet. Speed has now gotten by VER Razor by the looks of it. Razor's only at 4% fuel, so he'll likely have to pit at the end of this lap. When does our leader pit? Scored Buffalo. He has put a lot of drivers' lap down, closing in on NFL Racer right now. He has 3.5% in the fuel tank. He can probably go one more lap if he is careful. But the track still has not dried up yet. Scored Buffalo says, I'm not risking it. He jumps into the pits now. So your leader pits. So what of Maybe Racing, who is in second spot, trying to get around lap traffic in the form of Deedsmeem in there. Is Maybe going to pit, or is he going to stay out one extra lap? Try to hope that something works out in his favor here. Oh, he is pitting, so he doesn't think he has the fuel for anything more. What about PTG Speed in third? He's got 2.3% in the fuel tank. His tires are not looking good either. He'll have to pit. And then Dino here in fourth. He is going to jump into the pits. Razor is pitting. Golden in sixth. Is he going to jump into the pits with VER Polax right behind him? No, I think Golden is going to stay out one lap longer. Now, Buffalo already is going to hold the lead because he was so far ahead of Golden. It's not really an issue. But Golden stays out one lap longer, and those rooster tails are starting to go away just a bit. You could potentially pit now, throw on the sauce. It would be a very rough lap or so, but you could pit at the end of this lap and throw on the sauce. Has Golden pulled off a strategy masterclass by chance? He is 6.2 seconds out from Scored Buffalo right now, but we do not know what tire compound Scored Buffalo put on. Did he put on the wets or did he put on softs? Well, he's got nearly a full fuel tank, so at least on fuel he is projected not to pit again. Polax going to the outside of Golden, side by side between these two. Oh, and there's some not door banging, but side pod banging there at the top of the hill, and Polax muscles his way by Golden around the outside. Okay, well, with that, even if Golden has the winning strategy, I don't really think it matters now, because now he has a track position disadvantage to both Scored Buffalo and Polax. But the big thing is that Polax, by virtue of pitting early, had to spend a lot more time fighting cars that were of a speed closer to his own, and now he has fallen nearly 7 seconds out of the lead. And look at Jack Broseph here, back in fourth. Has he not pitted yet? No, he has not pitted yet. He's being very reserved on his fuel usage. Or at least I don't think he's pitted yet, right? No, he is not. He is the only driver left on circuit who has not pitted. So with that in mind, Jack Broseph in third, well, he's likely not in a position to steal a win. If he times this right, and again, with how quickly the track is now starting to dry up, I think he will. I think Jack Broseph is in a fantastic spot, because Scored Buffalo's going to have to pit again. Polax is going to have to pit again. Basically, everyone else on track is likely going to have to pit again here. There's no way that Scored Buffalo is on the soft tire compound. I imagine he's got to be running the wet tire compound again as a bit of a defense. You don't want to be running on the slicks in a wet track. But now that the track is drying up, there is Polax pitting out of the second position now. So the track is dry enough that Polax says he's had enough, and Jack Broseph is jumping into the pits as well. Okay, so the crossover point has now happened. Now, Scored Buffalo is going to win this race by default, I imagine, because he has just got such a massive gap over Polax and Jack that as long as he doesn't wreck this lap, he's still going to maintain a good gap over them. But now the question is going to be, what can Polax do going forward? Maybe Racing and the Big Map both stayed out a little bit longer here. The Big Mav already has a lot of tire wear on his car. Maybe racing, not so much. Maybe also put in a full fuel load as well, interestingly enough. So after pit stops, Jack Brosa fell all the way down to 11th, but we are anticipating that he is going to get the advantage of going by a lot of drivers who have to get off of wet weather tires again. So you could go one stop in this race, which is what Jack Brosa has done. Scored Buffalo is paying out the lead for the second time. He is now going to put on the soft tire compounds. The Big Mav in second. Will he jump into the pits this time by, or is he going to try and do something else? We know he has to have the wet tires on because he pitted so much earlier than everyone else when the track was still very wet. And yes, the Big Mav is coming in the pits as well. So again, Jack Brosa, he's not going to be fighting for this win, but Jack is going to jump way up the grid here by virtue of basically skipping an entire pit stop here. Maybe Racing is actually staying out a little bit longer. Oh, wow, who was that was slow on the circuit? Was that Golden? No, that wasn't Golden. Was that Fuzzball then? It may have been Fuzzball, who was very slow on the front straightaway. Oh, he's had an accident somewhere. Fuzzball has had catastrophic damage and nearly got ran over by Maybe. Now, Fuzzball still has engine power, so he's still able to go. They're likely not going to throw the yellow flag for that. But frustration for Fuzzball, who is already a lap down, and this is going to add insult to his injuries. So Maybe Racing is inherited the lead. PTG Speed is now second. But we know that he also still has to pit. Look at this, Jack Brosa has already made his way up into 9th position right now. Now again, he's going to move up a lot, and then the question is going to be, how well can he defend the positions in the closing laps afterwards? But still, this one-stop strategy is putting Jack into a relatively solid position here. Goes by the damaged car of Fuzzball. PTG Speed has been just about caught by Scored Buffalo. Amish Gaming pitting back there in 4th. Speed still out on track. You have to wonder, for some of these drivers, are they just going to stick with the tires they're on, just run these wets to the end, because they don't want to lose the time of jumping back into the pits and changing tires again. Thing is, you do that, those wet weather tires are going to absolutely shred themselves apart as this goes on. I wonder if maybe did throw on the softs and just struggled for about 2 laps or so, and then has just let the race come back to him, or trying to let the race come back to him. But yeah, Scored Buffalo easily makes short work of PTG Speed, as his Speed is basically standing still. VER Polax, after making his second stop, is back down in 4th now, 9 seconds out of the lead. He might still have a shot at PTG Speed, but he is about a little less than 4 seconds away from Scored Buffalo. Thing is, that's just not going to be enough unless Polax absolutely pulls out some mental pace here in these dry conditions. There is no way he is able to run down Buffalo. And even if he catches Buffalo, we've seen that making overtakes stick has been incredibly hard. There's no guarantee he will be able to get by Buffalo. So Maybe Racing leads right now. Buffalo pulled a massive gap on Maybe, but I guess when Maybe pitted, even though the track was still wet, I think Maybe might have thrown on the soft tire compounds, just struggled for a lap or two, but now they do not have to pit a second time. With 15 laps left, he has a 5-second gap between himself and Scored Buffalo. If he can keep this bleeding of time to Scored Buffalo to like a quarter of a second a lap or so, he will still have the win over Scored Buffalo. I said earlier, maybe he needs to do something to try and put himself on top in the series again to show that he is defending his championship. Well, this alternate strategy has given him some great track position, and even if Scored Buffalo catches him and runs right by him, a second place result for Maybe might not be a bad thing, especially if Scored Buffalo ends up missing as many races this season as he did last year. Polax runs in 3rd position. He has been one of your faster drivers, arguably the second fastest driver all day today, but the strategy calls have just not been good for him. He has just not had any good strategy calls, it seems. He is likely going to finish multiple seconds out of the lead here. Dino Prime still fighting with VER Razor here for what has now become a fight for 4th and 5th, as PTG Speed has jumped into the pits and changed tires. And look at this! After it's all said and done over, it looks like Jack Brosa has moved up into 7th position on track. So great strategy call on Jack, making it a one-stop race. Not very many other drivers were able to make it one stop, but one of the others who did was Maybe Racing, who has a lead over Scored Buffalo, but is watching it rapidly decay right now, and that is Thomas 086R completely out of control ahead of Maybe there. Again, by now the lap times are much faster. The laps are probably closer to about a minute and a second per lap here. So this race is likely going to be over in about 14 minutes or so, barring a yellow flag. The Big Mav stable came out in 8th position. Can they run down Jack Broseph to get back into 7th? GRPK Golden, another driver who made this a one-stop affair. He is running in 6th right now, which is pretty darn solid. Then you have Razor and Dino. Razor started relatively high up, but is just going to kind of hang out here. Dino did not start very high up, made his way up the grid slowly in the rain like we thought he would. But now in the dry, he is still maintaining a relatively high position on track. Again, for Dino, if he wants to try and take a championship fight against Maybe, this is not going to be a good enough run, but still, it is showing that a bad qualifying run is not the end-all be-all for your races in this series. Big hop over the curb there by VER Razor. Dino looking inside outside, not really willing to go for any big crazy dive bombs though. Scored Buffalo is closing the gap still on Maybe, but is he closing the gap fast enough? And then even when he catches Maybe, will he be able to pass him and dispose of him easily? Scored has spent most of the time really only fighting with lap traffic. Drivers who are a second or two a lap slower than him. Maybe is much closer to Scored's pace than everyone else. So Scored would have to legitimately fight with only a handful of laps left if he does catch Maybe here. Indiel Shadow right up at the front in the rain, but now in the dry has fallen out of the top 15 all the way down to 16th position. So an absolute nightmare run for Indiel Shadow right now. I don't think a lot of these people realize that in FEC, everything is set up and designed for the trio of Maybe Racing, Scored Buffalo, and Amish Gaming to be the automatic kings in just about everything. It's almost impossible to dethrone that trio in anything ran in FEC. I don't think Indiel Shadow or Poleaxe really realize how much of the deck was stacked against them here, as those three drivers have a massive impact on how these cars are set up and how these races are designed. Razor gets back in front of Dino Prime, and now Dino tries to cross over in the hairpin of turn 1 and does get back ahead of Razor once again. With that high-speed S and onto the back straightaway again now. Dino has the position, but Razor has the draft. He can go for a big dive bomb, and we know that Razor is willing to go nice and aggressive for this stuff. Does he lunge it in? Not this time. Dino does a really good job on defense. That's the lap car deed speed that this duo is about to catch here. I do want to give a shout to Prius Killer in 15th. Despite crashing on lap 2, he has rebounded enough to end up back on the lead lap right now. So great job on Prius for making that happen. Scored Buffalo is down to just 4 seconds out from Maybe Racing, but with 10 laps left, Scored, while he is closing on Maybe, he is not closing fast enough. So while Scored was the faster driver, without a doubt, all day today, Maybe Racing is going to nip him on strategy. He's going to outthink Scored Buffalo, and Maybe is immediately going to go right back to the top. So Maybe is going to continue his run of leading the championship in FEC Indycar, it would appear. Poleaxe looks like he is far enough ahead of this duo to easily come home third as long as there's no catastrophe that befalls him. GRPK Golden on that one-stop strategy is in 6th right now. Great job on him. And Jack Broseph currently trying to hold on for 7th over the Big Mav. And farther back, this is GTA Spino and PTG Speed. They are fighting for 9th and 10th on track, with Amish Gaming a little bit farther back. I do wonder what happened to Amish. It didn't look like he damaged his engine or anything, but Amish had been fighting his way up, got into about a fight for a top 5, and then just started backing out. And when he backed out, he just broke his momentum, broke his rhythm, and completely fell out of contention of this race. Typically, Amish's pace in the FEC series is enough to match or beat Scored Buffalo and Maybe Racing, so this is a very unexpected underperformance today by Amish. Oh, what in the... Do we have a caution? Oh, we have a caution! With about 10 laps left here at Hakone, everything is thrown out the window. We have a caution. A yellow flag is out. We aren't sure what the reasoning is. But now that we have a caution, we're going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break. And when we come back, we'll likely see the field coming back to green. But this changes everything here late at Japan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hakone here. The field is all gathered up. Is anyone going to go ahead and jump into the pit lane? We should be coming to the green momentarily here, but will anyone jump into the pit lane? Maybe Racing leads, but his tires are not looking good. Scored Buffalo should have the tire life to last to the end, though. Maybe is going to pit out of the lead. And Scored Buffalo stays out and looks like maybe is one of only a handful of drivers pitting here. So we're going to stay under the yellow for another lap. Those drivers will get a chance to circle around and get back to the rear of the grid, but now is going to be back to Scored Buffalo first, VER Polax in second, and Dino Prime now finds himself in third. But the big problem, though, is that he has traffic between himself and Scored Buffalo, so does Polax. So both Dino and Polax have to deal with traffic between themselves and the leader right now. So this is all but automatically given Scored Buffalo the race win anyway. So maybe Racing, who called the strategy perfectly, was caught off guard by a late race yellow, and now he is going to fall to the rear of the grid. He'll have a tire advantage, and he'll have to rush his way up through the grid. He is going to be restarting in what looks like the 13th position. We should be going green this lap, so we'll be going green with 7 laps to go here. The focus is going to be on Polax and Dino, because they have to navigate traffic and will immediately be going ahead and fighting each other. And for maybe how many positions can he make up in just 7 laps on brand new fresh tires? He'll also be joined on fresh tires by Da Big Mav, DGA Spino, and Prius Killer. There's no way those drivers catch Scored Buffalo, but I think any position up to second is possible for maybe Racing if he is just diligent and, quick but careful. You don't need to throw it 3 wide into every corner. Okay, the entire field is gathered up. XMS Dragon and Kuroshine, while they haven't left the race, they have been stuck on pit road for 18 and 24 laps respectively. So it's unlikely we're going to see them continue this race here. 2 Fuzzballs, 2 laps down. Thomas, Deetspeed, and PTG Neb all 1 lap down. Entire field gathered up. We focus on Polax, who is the 3rd car in line. He has 1 lap car between himself and Buffalo, 1 car between himself and Dino. Green flag. We are underway once again at Hakone. 7 laps to go. It was a respectable start by Polax. Dino, though, did not have as good of a start. Immediately, he is under threat from behind by Razor, and here comes Golden. Golden looks to the inside of Razor. Golden wants to make some moves late in this run. Golden goes by Razor now. Golden is now following behind Dino. Dino left the line open, and that's a big slide by Razor, and Golden is now right behind Dino. Razor is falling now. He's going to fall under threat from Jack Broseph and PTG Speed now. And already, Maybe Racing is in 13th. He's not moved any more positions yet, though. Buffalo is gone. It looks like Polax has not yet gone yet, though. Dino just barely holding station ahead of Razor, but he's fallen behind Golden as Golden has cracked the podiums. Remember, in the JGTC Season 3 at the race of Hakone, Golden took advantage of a late race yellow there to get a podium. Is he on track to replicate that here today as well? But Razor is not done with it. Golden really holding Razor up as it goes through the final corner, down the front straightaway now. Buffalo is gone. Polax is gone. The fight is going to be for third on back. Razor is now under threat from Dino. Razor inside, Dino outside, side by side as they go down to the next corner. Look at Speed going for a dive bomb on Jack Broseph, but he can't make it stick there. Maybe up to 11th now. Still side by side for these two positions between Razor and Dino. Looks like Dino has it over Razor for the moment. Big slide back there by Amish Gaming. Nearly goes off circuit. Here's Jack. Jack's into the mix again. Jack is back. He looks to the outside. They're going to make it three ways. They come down, and Jack's going to get ahead of Dino. Dino backs out of it, and it's going to be Razor who goes deep in. Razor moves up to 4th now. And now Golden is starting to scoot away a bit. It looks like our top three may have stabilized, and Polax is starting to find some speed. He is starting to run, scored Buffalo down here in these closing laps. Maybe Racing is now caught Dino Prime. So once again, Dino is being haunted by the fact that he just does not seem to have the pace or the aggression needed, while maybe even on a poor strategy is already making moves back up the grid. But at the front, it is Scored Buffalo who is walking his lead over Polax, gradually drift away. There's two cars in the wall farther back. One of them was Amish Gaming. Is there damage on his car? Yes, significant aerodynamic damage to Amish. And that's going to plummet him down the grid, maybe even knock him off of the lead lap. A bad day goes worse for Amish here late. Golden is getting caught now by VER Razor, so the fight for the final step on the podium is not over yet either. Razor is there, and not only is Razor there, Razor is going to be bringing Jack Broseph with him. The only thing really helping Golden out right now is he has a lap traffic in the form of Thomas 086R in the middle as well. NDL Shadow, remember, he was out of the top 15 before that yellow flag. He has now worked his way up into 6th position. He is showing more aggression than maybe. Shadow might still have a shot at a top 5 run here. He gets alongside Razor, side by side, clears Razor, NDL Shadow clears lap traffic as if it's standing still. Razor nearly goes off circuit, and Avel is by Razor now. Now Shadow looks at Jack Broseph. Jack on his alternate strategy has gotten as high as 4th even after this late race yellow, but he is so much slower than the other cars around him. He is calm, he is consistent, but he is legitimately slower, and Shadow seems to have found some mojo right now. Maybe Racing is suddenly plummeting down the order. Has something happened to Maybe? Nothing has happened to Maybe, but he has fallen back out of the top 10. This is not looking good for his chances at defending his championship right now. Here we are, Jack Broseph under threat from NDL Shadow. There's a little bit of contact between the two of them. Jack on the outside, Shadow on the inside. Drag racing down the long back straightaway here. There's still lap traffic just ahead of them right now. No, that's not lap traffic. That's Golden. Yeah, that's Golden on merit. Shadow has now passed Jack, and now Shadow is trying to run down Golden on merit. Jack's not done yet, but he immediately has to fight behind from NFL racer Dino Prime. Very nearly lost control of the car. Got into it with PTG Speed back there in the middle of the grid. No damage, but Dino is at 56% tire wear right now, and I think PTG Speed is at a similar amount of tire wear. Well, not yet. He's actually a little bit better off on tire wear. Here comes the Big Mab cutting his way through the grid now. He was another one of the drivers who pitted back then. Meanwhile, at the front, Polax is about 7/10, 8/10 out from Scored Buffalo. But 3 laps to go, he just has not closed in on Buffalo enough to really put the pressure on Buffalo. I think Buffalo is going to just barely win this race. Look at that run by Prius! Prius, who was a lap down after crashing on lap 2, is back into the fight for the top 10. And we know that he also has nice fresh tires right now. Down the back straightaway, Prius right behind the Big Mab. This is for 8th position right now. Looks to the inside of the Big Mab, side by side, and they're side by side behind them as well. It's 2 by 2 in this midfield fight. And for the moment, Prius clears the Big Mab. The Big Mab has a big slide off circuit there. Farther up, Yak has slipped back to 5th. He has fallen behind Shadow. Golden still holds on to 3rd, trying to hold station over NDL Shadow. Golden on track for another fantastic podium at Hakone. A fantastic way to start the season off, but Shadow has a gigantic tire advantage and still has 2 more laps. Trying to make something happen, but Shadow pounds the outside wall. All of a sudden, Jack Broseph is right on him again. Shadow is under attack from Jack Broseph. Jack is back. He goes to the inside of Shadow again. There's contact. Wheel to wing contact. Jack is back ahead of Shadow with less than 2 laps to go as they come out turn number 1. And now down into the high-speed S once again. Jack still holds the position, but Shadow should have a nice clean run and should be able to use the track to get right back by Jack. Jack is going to be on the outside. Shadow is going to be on the inside. And as these two fight, it's going to be everything that Golden could possibly want. He is on track for another fantastic podium result here at Hakone. Heavy under the brakes now, side by side. Shadow on the inside will clear Jack Broseph once again. But now the gap between Shadow and Golden is about a second, so Shadow is running out of time. Something has happened to Razor. Razor is plummeting down the grid lane. He has gone way off circuit through the dirt. There's no damage, but look how worn out those tires are. If that happened to Razor, what about Dino and Speed, who have fallen to 9th and 10th at this stage of the race? Shadow is in 4th. He is trying to run down on DRPK Golden. A big slide for Shadow again as he came out of the final corner, and Jack Broseph has another run on him. Polass has fallen 2 seconds out from Scored Buffalo, so unsurprisingly, Scored Buffalo will not be harassed for the win. Polass will not be harassed for 2nd. The fight is going to be for 3rd, 4th, and 5th here. Golden trying to stay just ahead of Shadow, and Shadow is trying to stay ahead of Jack Broseph. Jack is still right here behind NDL Shadow as they come out of the high-speed S down the back straightaway for the final time as this group. Just about nose to tail. Now it is nose to tail, and Shadow has also caught the draft of GRPK Golden. Jack is not going to go for any big moves on Shadow that time. Shadow gets right behind Golden. Golden's tires are cooked. I think Golden has cooked his tires side by side for 3rd now. Yes, those tires are cooked on Golden. There are 3 wide. They come down to it. Golden has the position. He has the inside line. There's contact. There's still 3 wide, and Jack and Shadow both go right by him into the dirt. And Golden is the only one of the 3 to stay on track. He goes back into 3rd position, side by side again between Jack and Shadow. Scored wins. Polass 2nd, but who's going to be 3rd out of the final corner? It will be Golden. Who's going to get 4th though? There is NFL out of nowhere, but it looks like, I think it may have been Jack. It was either Jack or Shadow. I could not tell who it was. That was too close to call for 4th, and NFL right there as well. 3 wide for a 6th position. Prius will be scored as 7th. Excuse me. Prius will be scored as 7th. Maybe Racing will be scored as 8th. PTG Speed will be 9th. 10th will go to GGA Spino. 11th will go to Dino. 12th will go to Pindaz. 13th to Razor. 14th to the Big Mav. 15th to Neesmork by the looks of it. And 16th will go to Amish Gaming. With Neb, Deedspearman, Thomas, and 2 Fuzzball all classed a lap down at the end of the event today. That was a wacky and wild race, to say the least. Well, that was probably more exciting and more interesting than half of the races, if not more than half of the races for the FEC Indycar season last year. But at the front, it should be no surprise that Scored Buffalo pulls off another win from the pole. We're going to take a Twitchman Day ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with some of our top 5 finishers here at Hakone. Let's see here if this will work. Hello, Polax, can you hear me? Yes, I hear you. In the Xbox party, there will be a little box that will say include my audio. Can you go ahead and hit that? All right, let me try something. Let's see if this will make it pop up for you. Can you see it now? Yes.
Okay, we're live, I think.
All right, sweet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Hakone. Our race is over, and we are going to do some post-race interviews with some of our top finishers here. First up, I want to start with our second place finisher, VER Polax. Polax, you've never been in FEC before. This is your first ever race at FEC, and you came home second. What do you have to say about your run today?
Not gonna lie, I wish the tune was a bit better on the curves, but honestly, it was a really fun experience. The reason I actually participated is because of some friends on NDL. They say, hey, there's this race going on with IndyCars. And I say, you know what? I like IndyCars, let's do it. So here I am.
Well, you did an absolutely fantastic job, spent almost the entirety of the day up front, but do you think if there was no traffic between you and Buffalo, do you think there was anything you could have done to Buffalo at the end there?
Nah, probably not. Like, that guy is probably gonna live on his own, man. Uh, he had, he was probably a lot more familiar with the tune than I was. Like, I only had like 2 hours to practice with the tune. But if had I gone a bit more practice, you know what? Maybe.
Well, for only having 2 hours of practice, that was an incredible run from you, mate. So I have to ask, are we going to see you throughout the rest of the season?
As long as the exams don't get in the way, yes.
All right, we'll be looking forward to that. I'd love to see an outsider take a run at FEC's greatest for the championship. It would be very interesting to see what you could try and do today and in the future.
Sure, I sure hope so.
All right, anything else you want to say, Polax, before we let you go for the night?
No, not really, just no comments. All I want to say is thank you for commenting. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you everybody for the amazing race, actually. A special mention to Buffalo. Like, he did an amazing run. I hope to see a guy on the track on the next opportunity.
All right, that's the word from our second place finisher, Polax. Now I want to go ahead and talk with our fourth place finisher, Jack Brosov. Jack, you were one of only a few people who finished that race on a single pit stop. And not only that, you still came home fourth by the looks of it in the middle of a while. All right,
Shadow had an in-game penalty, but yeah,
Okay.
So for extra context, I was in Ohio this morning. I live in North Carolina. I drove 8 hours, and I was like, you know what? I'll make the race. I had 10 minutes of practice, and I went in, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna save fuel, and I'm gonna run as deep as I can on the wets, and then go to slicks, and it worked a treat. I pitted good 3 or 4 laps later than anybody else, and I went before the pit cycle. I was 15th. After the pit cycle, I was 7th. So I was very happy with that. And then, surprising for me, the restart happened and I was able to keep up. So I guess just over the time, I learned how to drive because I qualified 17th. So yeah, I couldn't be happier. I love the tune. The racing was great. I mean, we were 3 wide multiple times on the last lap. I mean, one of my favorite races I've ever done. I'm so happy that Pandas has put the FEC where it's at, where we're having to bump people out. Like, this is 5 years ago what I wanted the FEC to be, and I'm glad that Pandas put it to that vision. I couldn't be happier. I drove well, it went well, I'm just happy.
All right, top 5 result here. Do you think you can replicate more top 5s over the rest of the season?
If I'm home, yes, certainly on ovals. I mean, ovals I'll look to win at least one of them this year, I hope. I won one last season, so ovals I'll be up there. But if I can keep top 5s on road courses, watch out, because that'll be awesome. Yeah, I couldn't be happier with myself. So much fun. And I'm going to watch back here live stream, because, yeah.
All right,
That was
anything
awesome.
else you want to say before we go ahead and let you go for the night?
GG's everybody I was battling. Everyone I was racing, it was hard but fair. I mean, a little bit of side pod contact, but no crazy dive bombs. Nobody was doing dumb blocks. Just a lot of respect, and I like to see that. So thanks everybody for racing clean.
All right, that's the word from Jack Grossoff, our fifth place finisher.
Thank
now
you
I
for
want to talk
streaming.
with. Yep. Thank you for having me on. And now I want to talk with our third place finisher, GRPK Golden. Golden, can you get your audio included in the party? Yeah. Golden, fantastic run out there today. You seem to have something about Hakone. You're really good at running here. What brought that result home for you, though? Yeah, very well indeed. Somehow, I don't know how, but you held off some of the best names in Forza. You held off Maybe Racing. You held off NDL Shadow. You've held off VER Razor. And you pulled off a podium along with some really impressive names. I'm really impressed. I'm not shocked. I've seen you do this before, but I'm darn impressed. These are the results that we know that you and your team can provide, and you showed it once again. All right, so a great start to the season at a circuit you're very good at. Do you think you can continue these great top 3, top 5 runs throughout the rest of the season, though, across other circuits? All right, I'll be looking forward to that because that will be absolutely fantastic to watch if you can make that happen, mate. Anything else you want to say, Golden, before we wrap up your interview tonight and we let you go? Well, I will say, with that in mind, with Polax coming home second with only 2 hours of practice, and Golden coming home third with no prior IndyCar experience, if I was the likes of Scored Buffalo or maybe Racing, there might be reason to be a little bit scared. Another driver I want to talk to, coming down to the end, is NDL Shadow. Shadow, welcome to the party. Go ahead and include your audio. Top 5 result, but you may have started up near the front, but at one point you were outside the top 15, and you got back to the top 5 at the very end of the race. What in the world was that race like for you, Shadow?
So I pitted too early from West. I didn't feel the cars much. I assumed the rain would last until about lap 30 or 35, and it ended at about lap 26. So I had to take an extra pit stop. And then on top of that, I lightly tapped a wall and somehow got damage, which was fun. And so I lost even more time. But I stayed out during the caution because I could make it on tires. And then worked my way through the field, dealing with some very questionable racecraft, but it's fine.
Well, fine is definitely one way to put it. You made more positions up in that final restart than anyone else in the field. You were outrunning the defending champion who had track position on you and even tires, and you blew him out of the water even. That was incredible. Going forward, do you think you can maybe get a little bit higher up, maybe start stealing some podiums later in the season?
Well, okay. I don't know if this was on your cast, but before Fast 8, I had the second fastest qualifying time, but I ran out of fuel. So if there wasn't Fast 8 and I didn't run out of fuel, I was going to be on pole. But I think I should be able to compete for wins in the future, assuming that I don't get unlucky with rain timing.
Well, I will say, rain almost never happens in FEC. This is only the second race I've seen in the rain for FEC in about 5 years. So I wouldn't worry about rain screwing you over too much, at least.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm like fairly confident. I have a bunch of oval experience as well, so I'm not lacking there. Should be fun.
All right, well, I will definitely be looking forward to seeing what you can do, because, Shadow, I've seen you in many, many different kinds of racing. You really are good in GT3. I see you a lot in GT stuff, but I've seen you perform very strongly in a lot of stuff, and like I said to Polax, it would be very interesting to see an outsider come and fight the best that FEC has to offer on their own turf. I'd be very interested to see what you can do going forward. Anything else you want to say, Shadow, before we let you go for the night?
No, that's it.
All right, that is the word from NDL Shadow, and now I want to round out our interviews with Scored Buffalo, your race winner from the poll. Scored, go ahead, include your audio. Well, there's a lot of talk about drivers showing potential, but in the end, easily led the most laps, easily took home another win. What do you have to say for your run out there today?
I'm pretty happy with this. I wasn't completely sure about whether there'll be rain in the race, but then once I got word of that, I never did really any rain practice. I just did dry, so trying to cope with that in the first few laps, I got the grip with that, and after I pulled away and broke the draft from Palas and Shadow, I was just out there just running my race, and I was having a pretty good time, honestly. Yeah, this was a pretty fun race, despite maybe I wasn't like fighting as much, but I was just enjoying the car, really.
Were you under any concern or any fear at all when that late race yellow came out?
A little bit, because I think whenever the yellow came out, it just threw my rhythm off, and Palas started to close the gap a little bit. But then I think after I saw that, I went back into my rhythm and got more pace out of it. So.
Fair enough. All right. 2 more questions for you. 1, if the yellow didn't come out, you were still running about 3.5 seconds behind Maybe Racing when that yellow came. You were faster than Maybe, but did you have enough time to run him down? And if you caught him, do you think you could have still passed him for the win if it went green all the way through?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I heard that he needed to pit another time anyway. So there was that. But if he didn't need to pit, and he pit before me, I already knew he was going to be worse off on tires. So if I'm catching him already before his tires really gave out, I think I would have had a really good chance.
All right. Well, big things scored. You're up in first. You're going to take the points lead right away after race 1. Now, last season, the big thing that kept you out of the championship was that you just missed a lot of races. This season, there is a drop round, but the season is also longer. Are you going to be able to attend enough races to have a shot at the championship this year?
I think so. I think I'll probably try to make more of the ovals, if I'm being honest. But I'll have to see. I think something like Eagle Rock and Miami, I'll probably go for.
Okay, so it's not an absolute yes, they'll show up enough for the championship, but there's at least going to be more effort than last year. Hey, I'll take that. Again, well, last season wasn't bad. I would love to see a championship fight going down a little bit deeper into the year, and you're definitely one of the drivers we know can provide it. Anything else you want to go ahead and say before we wrap up our broadcast tonight, Scored?
No, not really. I just want to thank everybody that showed up for the race today, because we were not expecting to see the turnout that we did. That we actually had to do the bump qualifying, so that was just crazy. I wanted to thank everyone for that.
All right, well, that's the word from your pole winner, driver who led the most laps, and race winner, Scored Buffalo. And with that in mind, I'll pretty much wrap up our broadcast here from Hakone. But don't you worry, we'll be back on Friday night. We'll be back with X League for the Porsche Cup. On Saturday night, we'll be back with X League for the GT3 Pro Championship. And on Sunday night, we will be back with FEC for their next race of the Summer IndyCar season. Until next time, though, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insane Layer 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Farewell, and goodbye, everyone.